Hi, I'm here with Professor Jan Toporowski. He is the co-guest editor with Professor Piotr Zuk of the most recent special issue of the Economic and Labor Relations Review. That special issue was called Capitalism After Communism, Europe and the World, 1989 to 2019. Professor Toporowski, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To begin with, I think that there's this great argument in the Hubert Gabrish paper that I want to introduce early and get your opinions on. He claims there that the transformation from regulated to unregulated capitalism in the global economy since the 1980s has led to societies being deeply divided economically, socially, and culturally. And as an outsider to the post-communist European states, it seems that they've traced this exact story over the exact same period, but in a much more intense way, a move from hyper-regulated communism to hyper-unregulated capitalism. Is this accurate as a thumbnail sketch?
Yeah, I think it is accurate, but I think it has to be more. One has to be more specific about it. There's two aspects of this regulation. On the one hand, there's financial regulation, and that's a complex issue that I just don't want to go into now. But the second and more important form of regulation or kind of regulation or class of regulation is the regulation of the labor market. And this is absolutely fundamental to trends that have emerged in the last 30 years or so, 30 or 40 years in not just in Eastern Europe, but in most countries of the world. In the first place, this deregulation is, I think, what accounts for the massive increases in inequality, in income inequality in most countries of the world. I think that this is an argument which Richard Koo has recently put forward, but I agree wholeheartedly with that. And the other side of this deregulation has been the movement of labor across borders, and this is politically and socially very, very important, because it's the fear of this that lies behind many of the populist political movements that have emerged in the last 10, 20 years. This I think is the most important kind of deregulation which we need to understand. And of course, in the communist times, this form of regulation was very, very strict indeed.
Well, there is this excellent paper, the Bieler and Saliger paper within the special issue that speak particularly to the experience of migrant workers and this move from trying to escape exploitation at home to find exploitative dynamics elsewhere. So I guess this is there's a focus on labor throughout the special issue in particular, I would say.
Yes, that's right. And I think the paper on the Baltic states is particularly important, because I think their experience of international of integration in the European economy was particularly painful, especially after the Latvian crisis of soon after the turn of the century, and the way in which this was resolved, and the way in which the markets have tended to resolve these by seeing them solely as crises of labor competitiveness. So crises that can only be resolved by lowering wages, lowering real wages, and this, of course, has a devastating effect on economies, because of the fall in wage income and expenditure, but also the political consequences that go with it, which is the rise of right-wing movements, right-wing movements that in many cases have stolen the traditional arguments of the left by saying, you want higher welfare payments, we'll give you higher welfare payments. You want higher wages, we'll give you higher wages. And this is something for which the left was not prepared.
Well, yeah, so the political ramifications of these economic transformations is really the meat of a lot of this special issue. I think we could talk about it in two ways. We could talk about the implications for understanding populism and the trajectories that we could expect for populism from here. But we could also talk about the possibilities of solidarity and of collectivism moving forward. Which do you think is more useful to talk? Which experience from these countries is more useful to talk about going forward, do you think?
I think solidarity is tremendously important, but it's actually a very, very difficult card to play, because in a context of, or it's a very, very difficult argument to make in the context of labour, cross-border labour mobility.
Mm.
It requires telling people that their problems are not caused by by the influx of refugees and migrants. I think one of the last people who made the argument for it was J.K. Galbraith. Actually, the last time I saw him, the great American economist who argued for free movement of labour, because he said that's what made America strong. And I think he had a point. I think that he's, but as I say, it's a very, very difficult argument to make, because it goes against all those arguments put forward by the more by nationalist politicians, who argue that these people are different. One has to be beware of these differences. These people bring disease. They bring. They lower your wages. They are responsible for your problems. So, I think that one has to confront this problem and deal with it. So this I think is for is one of the great political and social challenges of the transformation, of the changes that have taken place since 1989. But it's a problem that hasn't just afflicted Eastern Europe. As we can see, it's global.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I've tried to draw out some commonalities and some common problems faced by the Western liberal economies today, and the states that transitioned from communism to capitalism. I'm kind of interested in the opposite question as well. Is there a literature emerging on the Eastern European capitalism as distinct from other forms of capitalism, German capitalism, American capitalism? Is that where this literature is going, as a final question?
No, well, it should, I think, because but sadly, it tends there is very little consideration really of the nature of this capitalism. There's a tendency to pin labels on the kind of capitalism that has emerged in Eastern Europe, predatory capitalism, mafia capitalism, and so on. But it really boils down to the fact that certainly the capitalism that emerged in Eastern Europe is different to the one that we know in some of in Western Europe, North America. It's really a capitalism in which Eastern Europe is a reserve of cheap labor. And this is how it's being played by, to some extent, by the policymakers. Is it possible for a more modern form of capitalism to emerge in this kind of situation? I really doubt it very much. But it is this. There are those peculiarities which don't arise in other countries, in other more industrialized countries, and they really challenge the whole idea that capitalism is in some way a natural, spontaneous social formation.
Sounds like this special issue is the starting point of a series of big research questions in going in a number of different directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating. I look forward to it. I hope our readers get their teeth into it. Thank you so much for your time. The special issue is currently ungated, so please feel free to pop on, have a look at it as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.